You are back with your Feel Good Breakfast Show here on SABC3, and of course continuing with our health discussion on teen suicide prevention. Clinical psychologist Daniel Goldstone is still with us. Daniel will be telling us more about what help and support is out there for teens who are struggling with suicidal thoughts. A vital, important conversation, especially now because we know the matric results are out today. Learners are feeling like it's the end of the road if they're not getting the results they're hoping for. What can we as parents do to maybe put their mind at ease and tell them that it's not the end of the road, it's only the beginning of a journey?
Probably just say exactly that. You know, I think lead with kindness and care. Often, you know, matric results are built up from grade 11, you know, in schools, that they are this huge event, and learners get very, very stressed and anxious about them. And it is important. I mean, they do have some sort of bearing over whether you can get entrance into university or not, but it's not the be-all and end-all. And often learners tend to think that it's the matric results are all that matters, and if you didn't do well, that's it. There's no opportunity to repair that. But there are opportunities, and there are other things that they can do if they didn't get the results they wanted.
The conversation, Daniel, around suicide is a growing one. It's certainly a trending one, for lack of a better word, all over the world. I mean, we're hearing stories. I was reporting just in the news now that Japan's appointed a minister of loneliness because people are committing suicide at the highest rates. In South Africa specifically, are there times where we experience a peak in suicides amongst teens or just in general?
So amongst teens, there isn't really any good data around whether there are any peaks. So sometimes, interestingly enough, the holiday period is often a sort of a increased risk of suicidal behavior in people, which is ironic because we think that that's a time of people coming together.
Yes.
And of course it is, but for those who don't have people to come together with, they feel lonely, right? So that exacerbates that loneliness, which makes suicide seem like a more attractive option at that time. But yeah, not amongst teens.
And it's hard to say, right? Because, sorry, Jamie Lee, is that it's hard to pinpoint the triggers, or are there specific triggers that data is able to track from, I suppose, suicide notes and conversations with loved ones that are coming through as the more common triggers for people committing suicide?
So I think triggers are any stressful events, you know, so a massive relationship breakup or huge fight or something like that can often trigger an impulsive suicidal thought, which could lead to an impulsive suicide attempt. But sometimes the triggers are kind of more insidious and are more noticeable, actually. You know, so there's this idea that suicide is not preventable because we don't know what predicts it. But of course, there are many things that we can identify, like we were speaking about earlier: low mood, withdrawing from people, not engaging in activities that people like, those kinds of things. Yeah.
Here's my question to you: if someone is suicidal, will they always be suicidal? Is it always going to be triggered, or can they actually outgrow it in a sense?
Well, I suppose I'd ask the question, if someone has flu, will they always have flu? And the answer is no. So suicidal thoughts are something that happen at a particular point in someone's life, you know, and it's often related just to being under immense pressure or stress and not having people to talk to, not having the resources, or not knowing how to access the resources, because the resources are there.
Yeah. I have often seen on social media, on Twitter, many posts in the last couple of years where someone really is asking for help and they're crying out to be helped. They may say that they are contemplating suicide, for example.
Yes.
How do we help someone in that state? How do you take someone who sends you a message, for example, or speaks to you and says, I actually just want to end it all? How can you help them? How can you be there for them and support them?
I think the first thing is don't panic. Because I think that often when people become aware that someone that they love or that they know is suicidal, they don't know what to do themselves. So they think, sure, but I don't know what I can do about this. Should I reach out? Shouldn't I? Maybe it's best to leave it. I don't know if I'm the right person to help. But you are the right person to help. So if you know that someone is suicidal, the first thing to do is ask them how they're doing. So just show care and compassion. How's it going? What's going on? Why are you saying that? Are you stressed? Do you need some more support? If the person is acutely suicidal, so if they say, listen, I've got this plan, I want to do it tonight at this time, and you know, then that's an emergency, right? So then you've got to do your best to get that person to an emergency room as fast as possible. But that happens in a very, very small percentage of the cases when we know that someone is suicidal. Often they're just thinking about it. So reaching out and finding a way to help them is important. And of course, linking them with the resources like the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, or linking them with a mental health care provider, a psychologist or a psychiatrist. That can be very, very helpful.
Well, there certainly is help, and the details are on your screen right now. If you haven't taken note of those, it's the South African Depression and Anxiety Group. Their suicide crisis line is always available to take calls from people who need to speak to someone. All of those professionals are trained to be able to listen to you, yes, but they really do care. And the number is 0800 567 567.
And of course, if you have a question on teen suicide prevention for Daniel, make sure to give us a call on 021 110 5552, or you can send through your questions via our social media platforms. He will be answering all of your questions in just a few moments.